A contract and an agreement are related legal concepts, but they have some key differences. 1. Nature. Contract. A contract is a legally binding agreement between two or more parties. It outlines the rights and obligations of each party and is enforceable by law. Agreement. An agreement is a broader term that refers to a mutual understanding or arrangement between parties, which may or may not be legally binding. 2. Enforceability. Contract. Contracts are enforceable by law, and parties can take legal action if one party fails to fulfill its obligations. Agreement. Not all agreements are legally enforceable. Some agreements, like social agreements, may not have the legal backing to compel parties to perform. 3. Formality. Contract. Contracts often have formal requirements, such as a written document, signatures, and specific terms. They are typically more detailed and specific. Agreement. Agreements can be formal or informal. While a formal written agreement can be a contract, informal verbal agreements can also be considered agreements, although they might be harder to enforce. 4. Examples. Contract. Employment contracts, lease agreements, and business contracts are examples of contracts. Agreement. A casual agreement to meet a friend for coffee or an agreement to share household chores within a family are examples of agreements. In summary, while all contracts are agreements, not all agreements are contracts. Contracts are a subset of agreements that have a legal framework and are enforceable by law. Agreements, on the other hand, encompass a wider range of mutual understandings, which may or may not have legal implications. Void agreements and void contracts are both legal concepts related to agreements, but they have distinct differences. 1. Nature. Void agreement. A void agreement is an agreement that is not enforceable by law from the very beginning. It lacks the essential elements required to create a valid contract. It is essentially invalid and has no legal effect. Void contract. A void contract, on the other hand, is a contract that was valid when formed but becomes void and unenforceable due to subsequent events, such as changes in the law or impossibility of performance. 2. Enforceability. Void agreement. A void agreement is never enforceable because it is fundamentally flawed from the outset. It cannot create legal rights or obligations. Void contract. A void contract, although initially valid, becomes unenforceable after certain conditions are met. It may have been valid at the time of creation, but it loses its legal force. 3. Examples. Void agreement. An agreement to commit an illegal act, like a contract to engage in illegal gambling, is a void agreement. Such agreements are void from the beginning because they involve illegal activities. Void contract. A contract to sell a specific item that is destroyed before the sale can take place becomes void. The contract was initially valid but becomes void due to the impossibility of performance. 4. Consequences. Void agreement. A void agreement does not have legal consequences, and the parties cannot sue each other for non-performance because it was never valid. Void contract. A void contract may have legal consequences related to the return of any consideration, money or assets, exchanged between the parties before it became void. However, the contract itself cannot be enforced. In summary, the primary distinction is that a void agreement is invalid from the outset, while a void contract is initially valid but becomes unenforceable due to certain conditions. Both types of agreements lack legal force, but their legal status and reasons for being void are different.